Hello everyone, welcome to Vlogmas day 3. I hope you are enjoying December so far and enjoying Vlogmas. I am currently hand grazing my ginger pony, practicing what I preach after yesterday's vlog. It's been a beautiful day. I don't know if you can see the sun setting over there, probably not really. I'm actually filming on my phone at the minute because I left my camera up at the yard. Can you see that? Maybe just. Maybe not, I don't know. Anyway, it's been a beautiful day. So today I wanted to chat to you about rugs, because I feel like it's a little bit of a controversial, that is how you say it, isn't it, subject within the horsey world, because everyone has an opinion, and I'm not saying that my opinion is the right one, by the way, by any means. But it's what works for me, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, is kind of my opinion on rugging horses and what I believe is right for me and for my horse and any horses that I look after. So I obviously am a rugging advocate because my pony currently has a rug on, but very much as with anything else, such as maybe one day we'll do the shoes and barefoot debate, but we'll leave that for another day because that's another long one. Very much like with that though, my opinion has always been every single horse is an individual and every situation is an individual. So Ginger is quite a chilly horse naturally. He does feel the cold. How do I know this? Well, he has been known to stand there shivering when I've taken one rug off before I've put another rug on. You can rug him to the point that I felt like I've over-rugged him and still he's not hot. He just doesn't seem to get hot. He is obviously quite a active horse. He likes to move a lot. He's an ex-race horse, so he's had a life where he's had a lot of movement. He can run pretty consistently for quite a long time without working up a sweat. He obviously, if he's stressed, then that's when he'll get a bit warm because he stress sweats, but from a temperature point of view he doesn't really get very hot. He does get cold, and it took me a little while to kind of realise just how much I need to kind of help Ginger with staying warm, because a few times I would rug him as I would rug another horse. He would obviously get cold, and what happens when he gets cold is he gets very tense in his body, and I understand this because this happens to me as well, and I'm sure it does with you. Like, you kind of get like that and you go very tight and very rigid in your body. And it's not very good for a horse to be like that. It's not good for them, for their muscles, it's not good for them physically at all, and it's also not very good for their stomach, because if they get that tight and that tense, then it can have a knock-on effect on their digestive system, and that is what happens with Ginger. And he has actually colicked before because he's been too cold. So I do have to kind of take all of that into consideration, and that is why Ginger is sometimes rugged more than looks necessary, but I have to keep him warm because his health depends on it. So that's really important. So for Ginger, I tend to have a little bit of a system. If we're talking overnight rugs in the stable, if it goes below 11 degrees, then I'll put a rug on. So if it's kind of 9, 10, 11, then he'll have a fleece on. If it's 7, 8, maybe 9, he'll have a lightweight stable rug on. And then going from like 5 or 6, he will have a medium weight stable on, and anything below 5 he'll have his heavyweight stable rug, which is the one he's wearing now. Obviously I've just folded his neck back while he's out here just so he can stretch and enjoy having the air on him a little bit, but that will be folded back up later. If it goes any colder than -1, then we'll start layering and we'll put another layer underneath. Because our stables are indoors, it does make it a fair bit warmer. When I had him at a yard and the stables were outdoors, he would, by now, when it's going to like 0, 1, 2, that sort of temperature, he would already have a couple of layers on. But being here in an indoor barn, it does make it a little bit warmer, so he doesn't need that. So it's kind of just adjusting to the situation and the horse. He's unclipped, but he doesn't grow much of a coat. That is probably partly because I rug him so well. But yeah, he doesn't really get fluffy, so that doesn't help to keep him warm at all. Obviously if he's clipped, I would have to probably rug him even more, which is why I've never clipped him. And then if we think about turnout, then I work on a fairly similar basis, but I would rug slightly less because when they're out they're moving. So if they get chilly, they can move around and keep warm. Obviously if they're in their stable, they can't do a huge amount of movement to compensate for that. So if they're out, I would maybe use the same system, but using slightly lighter rugs. So the heavyweight rugs wouldn't come out until we're looking at the minus numbers, really. Obviously for other horses it's going to be different. I look after 4 horses and they all have totally different systems for their rugging. So Apollo is the next one. He is a much warmer horse. He's a lot more of a good doer, so he holds his weight well. That's the other thing with Ginger, he does drop weight if he gets cold, so through the winter I have to keep him warm to keep the weight on him, whereas Apollo does not have that problem at all. So we can be a little bit more reserved with our rugging with Apollo. Apollo is actually fully clipped though, so we do have to take that into account, but even being fully clipped he still wears less than Ginger does because he's just a warm horse, he doesn't need it. Tia, she is an older horse, she's in her 20s now, she's unclipped but she does feel the cold. She's probably on a similar level to Ginger, maybe wears slightly less. She has grown a thicker coat than him naturally, so that's what we do with her. And then Black Beauty, the little Shetland, he is fully clipped as well because he has Cushing's disease, so he grows such a thick coat and then he gets too hot even with his natural coat, because the thing is in the UK we don't have consistent weather. You know, we will have, at the moment we're going through a really cold spell, so it's hitting about 5 or 6 through the day, and then overnight it's going down to 0, -1 sort of temperatures, but then I think on Friday it's due to get up to 12 degrees. So the thing is, if they grow a really thick coat, it's great for when it's really cold, but then when we randomly have a warm day, they can't strip that coat off again for one day. So that's why we clip Beauty, because he just would then get too hot and he would literally be dripping in sweat, bless him, because his coat would be so thick because of the Cushing's disease. And he also grows that coat all year round, so he does tend to be clipped all year round. So with him, he's still a very warm pony. With Cushing's disease they can't regulate their temperatures very well, so they do tend to get a little bit hot. So he's only in sort of light and medium weight rugs. He doesn't really have any heavyweight rugs because he just never needs them. Even when he's fully clipped, he still doesn't need that much weight on him. So obviously from that you couldn't say that I am over rugging horses, because I will just adjust to which horse I'm rugging, and I think, to be honest, for me that's the best way to go about it. I have seen an awful lot of those charts going around recently that say if it goes to this temperature it needs to be this, if it goes to that temperature it needs to be that, and I have a little bit of a problem with those charts because very rarely do they say it depends on the individual horse. Now it might say it depends on your horse's age or something like that, but it depends on a lot of things, you know. It's not just their age, it is an individual. Ginger is 16 years old and there are, you know, he's rugged more than some older horses, or there might be a younger horse that's rugged more than him because that's what they need. It also depends on the weather, so not just, you can't just look at your weather map on your phone and it says it's going to be 6 degrees today, so I'll just put my medium weight rug on. If it's also going to be chucking it down with rain and gale force winds, that is going to be flipping cold. You know, the feels like temperature is going to be a lot lower, so at that point I would think about putting a bit more on. I kind of think about us as well, like how often do we check the temperature before we put a coat on? You know, if we feel cold we'll put a coat on, not, you know, and it doesn't really, the exact temperature doesn't really matter so much, it's how it feels out there. You've also got to take into consideration what your horse eats. Has he got plenty of hay? Is his field full of grass so he's eating plenty? You know, they have that internal heating system that they're that eating food gets that working. So if they haven't got a lot to eat, then they're not going to be able to keep themselves warm that way. On the other hand, if they have got plenty to eat, then they're going to help to keep themselves warm, so they might not need so much on. So it's very much a it depends situation. Throughout my sort of 20 odd years within the horsey world, I've seen an awful lot of different opinions and a lot of different people's opinions on how horses should be rugged, and I can't say that any of them are right, I can't say that any of them are wrong, but I've seen horses suffer through certain people's opinions. I've seen I see a lot within the natural horsemanship world, because people are trying to keep their horses as naturally as possible, which I agree with, but you do have to think that we cannot keep horses completely naturally. We wouldn't own them if that was the case, because we're interfering with nature. We're expecting them to be put into situations that aren't natural, sorry. We're expecting them to be ridden, we're expecting them to even if we don't do anything with our horses and they're just out in a field, it's very unlikely that they're out in a field that they would be in naturally. They're not on miles and miles and miles of pasture with endless food supply and all that sort of thing. Very often they don't have shelter. All of this needs to be taken into account, and I've seen horses suffer when that hasn't been taken into account, because people might have the view of, well, I do natural horsemanship, I want my horse to be as natural as possible, so I'm going to not put a rug on him and I'm going to take his shoes off. As I say, that's an argument for another day, or a discussion for another day I should say, and he's just going to be natural and then he's going to be happy. But if that horse has always been rugged and always been shod and all that sort of thing, and you suddenly, it would be like you just saying, I'm not going to wear a coat this winter. That's going to be a really hard winter. If over a period of years maybe you could wean yourself off of wearing a coat, but actually, it's a lot to expect all in one go. But anyway, I'm not going to delve too deep into that path because that's a long one to go down. But I hope that kind of makes sense, and let me know your thoughts. I'd love to know your opinions on it. I'm not judgmental of it at all. I fully believe that everyone is welcome to their own opinion, but I don't believe that any animals, including horses, should suffer because of people's opinions. So at the end of the day, we're all trying to do our best and we can all learn something from each other. So that's kind of what I'm trying to get out there with this. But for me, it's just treat every horse as an individual and don't follow any rules, just go with what's right for that horse. Hope I've not offended anyone with this vlog. I'm sure I haven't. I've tried to be very tactful. I don't mean any offence to anybody. As I say, we're all just trying to do the best we can. So anyway, but I'm going to love you and leave you for today. Tomorrow will be a come with me for the day vlog, so you'll get to see the ponies properly. I'm going to take this boy in a minute. We've been out here for a while and I'm getting a bit chilly. But other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.